Overnight, strange raised spots appeared on a farmer's horse, unlike anything he had seen before. When the reason behind them is discovered, the vet is shocked. John rose with the first light and headed out to the barn. Bella, his prized horse, usually waited patiently for her breakfast, but today was different. As he approached Bella's stall, he noticed her pacing nervously. She nickered softly, and her large eyes were filled with unease. "Hey girl, what's got you so worked up?" John murmured. When he reached out to stroke her neck, his hand froze mid-air when he saw them strange raised spots scattered across her usually glossy coat. They were about the size of quarters. Some were clustered together, and others were spread out randomly. His heart skipped a beat. He had never seen anything like it. The spots were reddish and slightly swollen. He leaned in to get a closer look, and his fingers gently probed one of the spots. Bella flinched. It was a clear sign that they were causing her discomfort. What could have caused this? John ran through a list of possible explanations: an allergic reaction, insect bites, an infection, but nothing seemed to fit. He had been so careful with Bella's care. She had the best feed, regular checkups, and a clean environment. Worry gnawed at him as he inspected the rest of her body. The spots were everywhere on her neck, flanks, and even her legs. John's sense of dread deepened. Something was terribly wrong, and he needed to find out what it was fast. He straightened up and walked briskly to the house. He needed professional help. He couldn't afford to take any chances with Bella's health. She was not only a beloved companion, but she was also a crucial part of his farm's operations. His farm was nestled in the rolling hills of Washington state, and it had been his life's work. He would protect it at all costs. Inside, he picked up the phone and dialed Dr. Josie Norton's number. She was the local veterinarian and had a reputation for being thorough and compassionate. John trusted her expertise. Dr. Norton's voice was calm and reassuring. "I'll be there within the hour, John. Don't worry, we'll get to the bottom of this." He hung up and returned to the barn. Bella nibbled half-heartedly at her hay. Her discomfort was evident. He wished there was something he could do to ease her pain immediately, but all he could do was wait for Dr. Norton. The minutes ticked by slowly. John kept busy by cleaning out Bella's stall and checking on the other animals. He usually followed the same routine every morning: feed the animals, check the fences, and tend to the fields. But with Bella's strange illness, he hadn't gotten around to that today. His thoughts kept drifting back to her. The spots were a mystery, and mysterious occurrences on a farm usually meant trouble. Finally, he heard the sound of a car pulling up. Dr. Norton had arrived. They walked briskly to the barn. Bella was still restless. The strange spots were glaringly obvious against her coat. Dr. Norton's eyes narrowed as she took in the sight. She pulled on a pair of gloves. John held Bella's halter as Dr. Norton began her examination. She carefully inspected the spots, her fingers gently probing each one. Bella flinched lightly but stayed mostly still. "These spots are quite unusual," Dr. Norton muttered, more to herself than to John. She took out a small flashlight and magnifying glass and examined the spots under better light. They're raised and seem to be causing her some discomfort. Have you noticed any other symptoms? Is she eating and drinking normally? John said she'd been a bit off her feed, but other than that she seemed fine. This just appeared overnight. Dr. Norton nodded. She checked Bella's eyes, ears and mouth, then listened to her heartbeat and breathing. Bella stood patiently. Her occasional fidgeting was the only sign of her discomfort. Any changes in her environment recently? New feed, bedding, or anything that might have caused an allergic reaction? Dr. Norton asked as she jotted down notes on a clipboard. John shook his head. Dr. Norton stood back, thinking for a moment. "I'll take a sample from one of the spots and send it to the lab for analysis. In the meantime, I'll give her something to help with the itching and discomfort." John asked if she thought it was serious. Dr. Norton paused to choose her words carefully. It's hard to say without more information. The spots are unusual, but we'll know more once the lab results come back. Try not to worry too much. Bella is a strong horse, and we're on top of this. 2 days later, Dr. Norton called John with the lab results. John had been on edge and answered the phone on the first ring. "John, I've got the lab results," Dr. Norton said. "It looks like Bella's spots are due to an allergic reaction, possibly to something in her environment or feed. It's not uncommon for horses to develop skin issues from allergens. I'll prescribe an antihistamine and a topical cream to help with the itching and inflammation. You'll need to change her bedding and switch to a hypoallergenic feed. We'll monitor her closely and see if there's any improvement." John followed Dr. Norton's instructions to the letter. He changed Bella's bedding to a hypoallergenic material and switched her feed. He applied the cream daily and gave her the prescribed antihistamines. For a few days, it seemed like things were improving. Bella's itching subsided slightly, and John's worry began to ease. But then, just as John thought they were on the right track, Bella's condition took a turn for the worse. The spots not only failed to disappear, but they also began to spread. New spots appeared on her legs and neck, and some of the existing ones grew larger and more inflamed. Bella became increasingly agitated. John's heart sank. He had done everything Dr. Norton suggested, but Bella's condition was deteriorating. His anxiety grew with each passing day. He felt helpless as he watched his beloved horse suffer without being able to provide any relief. John called Dr. Norton again. "Bella's getting worse. The spots are spreading, and she's in more discomfort than ever." When Dr. Norton arrived, she examined Bella thoroughly. She compared the current state of the spots to her initial notes, and was clearly puzzled by the progression. "This doesn't look like a typical allergic reaction," she admitted. "I'm sorry, John, it seems we might have misdiagnosed Bella's condition." John's heart sank. "We'll need to run more tests," Dr. Norton said. "I want to take a closer look at the samples and consider other possibilities. A few other conditions could cause similar symptoms, but we need to be sure before proceeding." John's anxiety returned to full force. The uncertainty was almost unbearable. He watched as Dr. Norton carefully took more samples and prepared them for the lab. "I'll expedite these tests," Dr. Norton said, while packing up her equipment. "We need to get to the bottom of this quickly. I'm sorry for the misdiagnosis, John. We'll figure this out." The following days were a blur of anxiety and care. John spent every waking moment by Bella's side. He ensured she was comfortable and well tended. The wait for the test results felt interminable. John's thoughts raced. He considered and discarded countless possibilities. He read everything he could find about equine skin conditions, hoping for some clue that might lead to an answer. But without a definitive diagnosis, all he could do was wait. As the days went by and Bella's condition continued to deteriorate, word of the mysterious spots began to spread through the small farming community. John was usually a private man, but he had shared his concerns with a few close neighbours, hoping for advice or similar experiences. As they talked, the news quickly travelled beyond the initial circle. One morning, John went to the local grocery store and was greeted with worried looks and hurried whispers as the store buzzed with speculation. People were anxious, and it wasn't long before rumours of a possible outbreak began to spread. "I heard John's horse is covered in strange spots," Mrs. Miller said to a group gathered near the checkout counter. "What if it's something that can spread to our livestock?" Mr. Thompson, a fellow farmer, nodded grimly. The fear of an unknown contagion gripped the community. Farmers began inspecting their own animals more frequently, looking for any signs of the mysterious condition. The local feed store saw a spike in sales of various supplements and remedies as everyone tried to protect their livestock from a potential threat. John became the unwilling center of attention. Neighbors dropped by more frequently under the guise of offering help, but they were clearly driven by their own fears and curiosity. John tried to reassure them. He explained that Dr. Norton was handling the situation, but his words did little to quell the growing panic. Later that evening, as John was finishing his chores, Dr. Norton arrived. She had a serious look on her face, and John's heart sank. "John, we have a clear picture now, but it's complicated," she said. "The tests indicate that Bella's condition is something called eosinophilic granuloma with collagen degeneration. It's not contagious, but it's quite serious and requires specific treatment." John immediately wanted to know if it was treatable. Dr. Norton nodded. "Yes, but it's going to take time and careful management. We'll need to monitor her closely to figure out the reason behind this." Little did he know that he was about to learn this reason from an unexpected source. John had just finished the evening feeding when the phone buzzed. It was Tom, a neighboring farmer and an old friend. He wanted to drop by and discuss Bella's situation. He added that he might have some useful information. Tom arrived shortly after. "I had a similar situation a few years back with one of my horses, Daisy," he said. "She developed strange spots all over her body, much like Bella. It took us months to figure out what was wrong." John leaned in, eager for any clue that could help Bella. Tom sighed. "We went through all sorts of treatments, but nothing worked. Finally, a specialist discovered that Daisy had a rare reaction to a certain type of insect bite. It was the last thing we expected." John's eyes widened in disbelief. "Insect bites, really?" Dr. Norton mentioned that Bella's condition was eosinophilic granuloma with collagen degeneration. Could the case be related? Tom continued. "Daisy's condition was triggered by insect bites that caused her immune system to overreact. That's what led to those spots they quickly called Dr. Norton. She was shocked by this discovery." "That's an interesting insight," she said, surprised. "Insect bites can indeed trigger eosinophilic granuloma, but I hadn't considered that angle because Bella's environment seemed well maintained. It's definitely worth investigating further." Dr. Norton arrived armed with new equipment and ideas. She and John examined Bella's stall and surrounding areas, looking for signs of insect activity. To their amazement, they discovered a hidden nest of gnats in the corner of the barn. It was well concealed and easy to overlook. This could be the culprit, Dr. Norton said. Gnats can cause severe reactions in some horses, and their bites might be triggering Bella's condition. They immediately took steps to eradicate the nest and thoroughly cleaned Bella's stall. Tom's unexpected insight had provided the breakthrough they desperately needed. John couldn't thank him enough. Hopefully this discovery would be their final hurdle. With Tom's crucial insight in hand, Dr. Norton returned to her clinic to re-evaluate Bella's condition in light of the new information. The discovery of the gnat nest provided a compelling lead, and she began to consider how an allergic reaction to insect bites could be the underlying cause of Bella's eosinophilic granuloma. She conducted more specific tests focusing on Bella's immune response. The results were revealing Bella had an unusually high sensitivity to certain insect proteins, which had triggered the severe skin reaction. Tom had been right. With this shocking breakthrough, Dr. Norton formulated a targeted treatment plan. The next morning, she arrived at John's farm with a new sense of purpose. "John, we've confirmed that Bella's condition is indeed caused by an allergic reaction to insect bites. We need to start a more aggressive treatment regimen to get her immune response under control." John listened intently as Dr. Norton outlined the new plan. "We'll start with a stronger antihistamine to reduce the allergic reaction. I'm also prescribing a corticosteroid to bring down the inflammation and an antibiotic to prevent any secondary infections from the open sores. We need to be vigilant in keeping her environment as insect-free as possible. They wasted no time. John administered the first doses of the new medication under Dr. Norton's supervision. The next few days were a roller coaster of emotions. Initially, Bella seemed to respond well. The spread of the spots slowed, and for the first time in weeks, John dared to believe they were on the right path. He followed Dr. Norton's instructions meticulously. But then, like before, just as things seemed to be improving, Bella's condition took a sudden turn for the worse. One evening, John noticed that she was more restless than usual. Her breathing was laboured, and she refused to eat. The spots, which had started to heal, looked inflamed again. Panic surged through John. "How is this happening again?" He called Dr. Norton immediately. She arrived within the hour. "It looks like Bella is having a severe reaction to the new medication," she said. "We need to adjust the treatment." The hours that followed were agonizing. John barely slept. He kept a constant vigil by Bella's stall. Dr. Norton checked in frequently. Slowly, Bella began to stabilize. The anti-inflammatory injection took effect, and her breathing eased. The new antihistamine seemed to work without causing the severe reactions of the previous medication. Over the next few days, the spots began to recede. The inflamed areas healed gradually, and Bella's appetite returned. John felt a cautious hope grow stronger with each passing day. The treatment was working. Bella's strength was slowly returning. As Bella's condition continued to improve, Dr. Norton decided it was time to sit down with John and explain the full scope of Bella's diagnosis and treatment. Now that they had all the information, it was all quite complicated, so she thought this would be a good idea. She arrived at the farm one sunny afternoon with a stack of detailed reports and medical charts. "John, let's have a chat," she said, motioning toward the porch where they could talk quietly. Once they were settled, Dr. Norton began. "John, Bella's condition is something called eosinophilic granuloma with collagen degeneration. It's a complex condition that occurs when the immune system reacts aggressively to certain stimuli, in this case, insect bites. The eosinophils, a type of white blood cell, build up in response to the bites and cause these nodules to form." John tried to absorb the information. Dr. Norton explained that in a healthy response, eosinophils help fight parasites and infections, but in Bella's case, her immune system overreacts. This caused the granuloma to form and damage the collagen in her skin. "This is why we saw those raised inflamed spots all over her body." John shook his head in disbelief. He never realized it could be something so complicated. In his mind, it was a simple allergic reaction or something that would clear up quickly. Dr. Norton continued, "It's a rare condition, and it's easy to misdiagnose at first. That's why I was so shocked, and that's why it took us some time to pinpoint the exact cause. The good news is that we've identified the triggers and can manage her condition effectively now." John looked at the reports spread out before him. He wanted to know what exactly they did to help Bella get better. Dr. Norton pointed to the treatment plan she had devised. "First, we removed the source of the allergic reaction by eliminating the gnats. Then we treated the symptoms to reduce the immune response, control the inflammation, and prevent any secondary infections." John shook his head as she continued. The challenge was finding the right balance. Initially, Bella's reaction to the treatment was severe because her system was so sensitized. By adjusting the dosages and switching medications, we were able to stabilize her and reduce the inflammation without causing additional stress. For John, the million-dollar question was if Bella would ever heal completely. "Bella will be prone to flare-ups if she's exposed to triggers again," Dr. Norton explained. "We'll need to maintain a strict regimen of insect control and monitor her closely for any signs of recurrence. But with careful management, she can lead a healthy and comfortable life." John breathed a sigh of relief as they finished their conversation. He felt a deep sense of gratitude. The complexity of Bella's condition had been overwhelming, but with Dr. Norton's expertise, they had navigated the challenges and found a path to healing. John walked back to the barn, where Bella was resting comfortably in her stall. He stroked her mane gently. "We've been through a lot, girl," he whispered, "but we're stronger for it. We're going to take good care of you and make sure you stay healthy." Bella nuzzled him affectionately, as if understanding every word. The true cause of Bella's mysterious spots had been revealed, and with it a renewed commitment to her well-being and a hopeful future. As the weeks passed, Bella's recovery continued steadily. Her once inflamed and painful spots began to heal. They only left behind faint traces of the ordeal she had endured. Her coat gradually regained its glossy sheen, and her appetite and energy levels returned to normal. Each day John watched with a grateful heart as Bella moved about her stall and paddock with increasing ease and comfort. The memory of those first frightening days, filled with uncertainty and fear, felt distant now, but the lessons learned remained fresh in his mind. The experience underscored the importance of vigilance and proactive care. John realized how crucial it was to understand the nuances of equine health and the potential for unexpected complications. Word of Bella's recovery spread through the farming community and brought a collective sigh of relief. The initial panic and speculation gave way to a more informed and supportive approach to animal health. Farmers who had been weary and anxious now sought to learn from John's experience, asking questions and sharing their own stories of challenges and triumphs with their livestock. Tom, whose insight had been pivotal in Bella's diagnosis, became a trusted source of wisdom for many in the community. His experience with Daisy and his willingness to share it made a significant difference. Dr. Norton continued to monitor Bella's progress to ensure that the treatment plan remained effective. She also used Bella's case as a teaching tool to raise awareness about eosinophilic granuloma and the importance of considering environmental factors in diagnosing skin conditions. As the seasons changed and the farm settled back into its familiar rhythms, John knew that challenges would always come. This was, after all, a farm. But he also knew that he had new knowledge to tackle whatever came his way. Do you have a story about an animal illness that had everybody stumped until someone had a bright idea about the cause? Tell us about it in the comments. We'd love to hear. For now, though, we're done. We'll catch you in the next video.